Some intelligence and law enforcement agencies warn against a possible security threat if the government grants the United States request to temporarily house Afghan nationals pending their U.S. special immigrant visas. These are Afghans who previously worked for the U.S. government, as well as their families who have to flee their country after the Taliban ruled in 2021. Authorities tell the Senate that the Philippines may end up as a target by Taliban supporters in the country.
I think the apprehension we noted is that they may have sympathizers from the southern Philippines.
The National Intelligence Coordinating Agency says taking in Afghans could trigger sleepers or inactive terrorists. The National Commission on Muslim Filipinos shares the sentiment, raising the recent encounter in Marawi City that killed the supposed leader of ISIS in Southeast Asia.
So apparently they're regrouping and they're growing in numbers.
Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo says the U.S. gives the assurance that its former Afghan employees have been vetted. But Defense Chief Gibo Teodoro admits the employees' families are another issue.
Insofar as their backgrounds are concerned, there definitely will be some gaps.
Senator Francis Tolentino says the possible entry of Afghans will be a plus factor on the country's human rights record. On the other hand, Foreign Relations Committee Chairperson Eimor Santos asks why the secrecy and the details seem sketchy. Manalo says the U.S. made the request in writing to the Philippines in October, and U.S. President Joe Biden personally raised it with President Bongbong Marcos in May. He adds a few agencies met last year until they decided to elevate it to the Anti-Terrorism Council in April and to the Cabinet in June. Officials say the Afghans will be considered Category A or restricted nationals, which means they would have only 59 days to stay in the country.
There is a time limit for that visa, and once it's expired, the United States is, I assume, obligated to bring or either process it immediately or they have to leave the country.
The U.S. has yet to process the visas of some 50,000 Afghans, and it will conduct a pilot test. Senator Marcos says there are more questions than answers, and she may hold another hearing. Ultimately, it's her brother's call.
Nasa kamay ng Pangulo ang kapangyarihan magdesisyon dyan. Ang atin lamang magrekomenda.
Eimor Santos, CNN Philippines.